when we okay, it's from the same like early version of the game. We at first we built it like you could gather loads of phrases, like almost anything you gathered in the scene you'd get it. We were thinking, hey, you walk in a room, there's gonna be like lots of books, you can get phrases from them. Anything that's in player's inventory, you'll get phrases. We thought that's gonna be like fair. It's up to the player to figure out what's important, what's not. Quite quickly we discovered that yeah, it just becomes unmanageable. It's not enjoyable being overwhelmed by this information. It's actually not enjoyable, and this was a strong signal for us that we don't need this realism.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Game Engineering Podcast. Today I am joined by Andrejs, who with his brother Ernests developed The Case of the Golden Idol, a beautiful point-and-click mystery game. We discussed the design of the Golden Idol, and then we move more broadly into the Obra Dinn design, then the Outer Wilds design, and then we cross-reference all of them together, and it was really fun. We also discussed the Godot engine and the implications it made on the development of the Golden Idol. And then I was asked, well, what are your thoughts on the Golden Idol and what would you expect from the sequel? And then we moved more into discussion more broadly in terms of how mystery games work and what would be fun to see in the future. It's a really cool discussion and you should watch it right now. Okay, let's start then. Let's discuss Case of the Golden Idol. I'm so happy to do this actually. I really love the game. So let's start like this. Can you tell me a little bit like an overview for everybody who is listening? What's the Case of the Golden Idol?
So the Case of the Golden Idol is a point-and-click detective game in which you have to solve 12 cases, and we're calling them scenarios, and in each scenario consists of a frozen moment in time in which you observe some kind of scene of murder and gather evidence, clues, phrases, and then you have to sort of solve it by filling in these phrases in puzzle slots. You have to finish sentences to solve a scenario.
Yes. You've navigate on the scene and find the words, right? Accumulate the vocabulary and then fill in the sentences, the holes in the sentences to finish the scenario, right?
Yeah, and I guess what makes the game a bit less typical is there is no player character. You're sort of like just observer. You don't have any agency in the game, and the setting is slightly supernatural, alternative 18th century England.
Slightly supernatural. I love that. Slightly supernatural. And you made this game with your brother, right?
Yes, that's correct, with my brother Ernest.
How did you split the responsibilities?
Main split was that I would do all the coding and technical implementation, and Ernest would do all the art. But something with which I'm very happy, all the content, work, puzzles, story, that was like close cooperation. If I had to choose, I'd say Ernest was a bit more in charge of storyline, and I was a bit more in charge maybe in game design decisions.
Ernest has a unique art style. This eerie art style. The characters are sometimes so twisted, like in such a unique way. You can pass him along my like utmost I don't know, gratitude, admiration for this. Like this is the character art for the dark hand cultist is like wacky. Like it's amazing. It's incredible.
Okay, yeah, I'll tell him that. It has it now that the game has been quite successful. We are happy with in the end with our art style, but we were while we were developing it a bit worried because indeed an honest art style is quite polarizing. Like either people love it because it does something original and different, or they hate it because it's sort of ugly, it's grotesque, it slightly challenges what do you think things should look like. But yeah, now in hindsight, I'm very happy with it because it does one thing. If you show someone a screenshot of a Golden Idol who has played Golden Idol, they will immediately recognize it. Like it's very recognizable.
Yeah, yeah. And if you show somebody like 10 screenshots of different games, the case of the Golden Idol will stand out because of the art style, definitely.
Yeah, yeah. It's something in another podcast discussion. One person mentioned that it's actually a bit of challenge. Like in the indie games, there are so many of them, but and they do lots of interesting things, but many of them have sort of stopped pushing visual part. Like okay, all of these are some kind of acquired pixel art style, and all these use some kind of maybe I don't know standardized anime style, and yeah, that makes them a bit too uniform.
Okay, let's discuss the design of the case of the Golden Idol. You mentioned, I think, in this in the conversation we had before, that you were kind of in charge of the design principles, and like you tried to outline what the design principles would be. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes. So I tried to find them because I had written them down in some wiki somewhere a long time ago, but I didn't find them. Nonetheless, I know that we one design principle was that we wanted to respect the player by trusting that they will figure things out. Our game, I wouldn't say it doesn't have any tutorial, but there is no explicit tutorial. We don't even tell what you're supposed to do in the first scenario. And we kind of trust that, okay, those who are curious, they will find how to play this game. And secondly, we wanted really to respect players by not wasting their time. I'm quite impatient gamer, and it's one of the things that I remember in any older point-and-click adventure games, and often in modern games. Sometimes you're just walking from point A to B, not doing actually anything meaningful. You might be building some kind of your understanding about the environment or taking in the atmosphere, but sometimes you're just waiting to get to point B and doing nothing else. And so we wanted the game to be very sort of, suddenly forgot the word, but there to be lots of it, sort of, yeah, it's not scarce, but it's very rich, how much you can do.
Okay. It feels like, yeah, you mentioned that you removed the player character, which is kind of the thing that I didn't even think about, really, because we probably will turn to this, but like in Obra Dinn, you have a distinct character and you're on the quest to find out what happened on the ship, right? And in the case of the Golden Idol, you're kind of out there, but still you have a lot of things to do, and pretty much you're immediately at the game. Like you never are not playing the game if you're in the game, right? Like you always are doing the things related to the task. This is very interesting. Like, you don't really like waste time at all because of the like removal of the player character. Because of this removal, did you have like some players that were turned off because of that? Like, did you have any kind of like negative comments about not having somebody to control or like being engraved in the story?
Yes, we've had other questions or objections that in this game you don't even do anything, or like it's not a game because there's no character. We have had those. I am not bothered by them because we had very strong reasons. Firstly, we agreed internally that we will try to figure out a role for a player character if we can reach sort of an organic solution for it. If we don't, we just don't address the question. Like, there is no player character, and we couldn't figure it out. And the main reasons are two. From the story point of view, if you want to show many different scenes in different locations and time periods, then player character who is always there has to be some kind of time traveling magical creature, effectively, and or someone who is like kind of in Obra Dinn observing this through some kind of magical artifact. But then I'd say it's almost like no player character. Like, if I'm honest, I don't think there is player character in Obra Dinn because that character is not doing anything. It's just filling in a book. It doesn't affect events in any way. So yeah, we felt that if we explained presence of player character in each of the scenarios, it would overshadow the actual events of the game, and we didn't want to do that. So that was one reason. Second reason is with player characters, I mean, usually comes agency. It means you can actually do something. Either if it's a detective game, I don't know, you stop the crime, or you maybe find the guilty party and bring them to trial. Again, we didn't want to do that because that would imply either non-linear outcomes. Like, I don't know, it's a game where you don't really know whether you brought them to justice or not, or you had a bad outcome. I think it feels weird because I know that normally this is a one-time only game. Like, you will not replay it. There is no replayability to Golden Idol, unless you're just like exploring to find details, but otherwise you will not replay it. And I actually don't like this feeling when there's like one-time play a game, but in the end they give you like choice A and B. You pick B, then you just load game and look at the answer A. Like, you're not gonna play and look at answer A. So that's the second reason. Nonetheless, I will say that thinking about our future projects, we are still fantasizing how you can, in a satisfying manner, implement some agency in a detective experience.
Okay. And we touched on Obra Dinn. For all those who have not played Obra Dinn, it also draws on the mystery genre and creates a game where you work as a character on a ship and you need to discover what fate has, whatever happened to everybody on the ship, and pretty much how they died in various scenarios. And I know that the case of the Golden Idol was heavily inspired by Obra Dinn, right? I think you wrote that on the blog that I have read at some point. And I kind of feel like Obra Dinn created some kind of like a niche inside this genre, where you have this place where you fill in some of the information that game is giving you, and then at some point the game confirms your choices, right? And says, okay, you're right, you can progress. Because the mystery games, if you don't do that, they kind of expand indefinitely, right? And how much of the Obra Dinn and their mechanics were the inspiration for the case of the Golden Idol? How much of this is accidental?
I would say there's massive inspiration. Like when we pitched our game in early days, we just said it's Obra Dinn meets point and click adventure game. We were very sort of open about it, and even when we were brainstorming, when we started out thinking, okay, what we could prototype, we wanted to formulate problems in game design. And one of the problems we formulated that there are quite a lot detective games, but only very few of them feel like they actually offer detective experience. Many of them are detective themed, but I don't know, you don't have to figure out things, or you don't have these nice aha moments, which ideally we want players to experience. And yeah, and then we looked at Obra Dinn and thought, like, this is great detective game. Where, and it's been quite popular, and people have been crying for something like that for years. Where are the clones? Where are the followers? Yeah, then we thought, okay, can we make something inspired by that, but in 2D and in sort of more contained scenarios?
If you take this aha moment from the detective genre, what would you say needs to happen for these moments to be in the game?
Yeah. So I'd say it's in my mind there's very precise requirements. So you start with some kind of question for the players. Say they arrive at the scene, they see a dead body, and they are immediately curious. Okay, what has happened here? Why this person is dead, or how they have died? I think that body nicely asks you already what's going on here. Then ideally the game should give enough information for players to arrive at some kind of first hypothesis where they think, okay, this person, they must have, I don't know, fallen from a cliff. Like it looks like there's a cliff, and then there's like enough information to fill. So they fill it in, and it turns out, they're wrong, which is like this moment of confusion. How can it be? All the evidence is there. And then they feel a bit stuck, kind of behind like a hump. And then when they're confused, and then they start re-evaluating things and notice details and maybe see that they've made some wrong assumptions, I think that is that moment when they have, wait, he can't have fallen from the cliff. Actually, this thing happened. And yeah, and I think when there's this nice realization how I had this idea and now I see how it was wrong, that's the moment of epiphany.
So players need to have kind of like more words in the case of the Golden Idol, but generally in Obra Dinn as well, like more things to fill in, like the more information to create some hypothesis, right? So like they need to, it can be just like thrown at them, the situation. They need to have something to assemble it from.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, we're calling them red herring storylines or red herring phrases, which work as alternatives.
How much of this red herring can you do before you're like purposefully putting players off track, way beyond their capacity to come back?
Yeah, I don't have a nice way how to answer that. Okay, no, I think I have. I think that shouldn't be like, I think at most 2 or 3 alternative paths, maybe 1 to 3 even is enough. Yeah, if you see like there are 10 opportunities, I'd say you just get into the area of being very overwhelmed. It's not even that you get very, or alternatively, I'd say it would be bad if there was like very, very well developed red herring. And then it turns out like, there's just small detail which says this is actually wrong. And it also might feel like unfair. Like there's so much information which supports hypothesis A and it's turned out it's hypothesis B. I think that would be disappointing, but primarily, I'd say it's more a problem of overwhelming players. We, in general, shouldn't offer too much information because you just get lost in it.
Have you playtested the case of the Golden Idol?
Playtested?
Yes, playtested.
Massively, yes.
Okay.
It was super important for us.
So, how have you tweaked the number of words that people get, and by extension, I think difficulty, right? Like, was it too difficult in the beginning and you tune it down, or the other hand, like, how come have you arrived at the release difficulty, let's say?
Okay, a bit of story because this part is very interesting. The very first scenario we built was the second one with a dead gentleman in the bed, and we that was like single puzzle scenario. We had only this scroll text, nothing else, and it was like 10-minute experience. We tested it. We felt, okay, this kind of works. But then we thought, okay, but what happens if we want to build a longer scenario? Like we can't make a game consisting of just 10-minute scenarios. It's going to be super hard. So let's build a harder one, which we want the players to play, I don't know, like maybe an hour or 45 minutes. So we built the Murder at the Little Mermaid Inn scenario, and which consisted of 2 scenes. It had, I don't remember, something like 25 phrases to be gathered, 8 characters to be identified. So quite a step up in difficulty. And we realized that it's too hard. Players get, like, they fill in the scroll text, it's wrong, and they feel like, shit, I don't know what to do with this. I mean, at first we tried with some very sort of fanatical players, and they actually could solve it. But then we tested with a bit more normal players, and they were thinking, this is like too much for me. I can't deal with this. And this led us to a super, like, I think our main breakthrough, that we needed to add more puzzles which confirm some parts. So the game is not just you get all this information in one big puzzle to fill in, but instead you have these sort of like steps. You fill one thing, then next thing. And at first we added the portrait puzzles, and they weren't in a separate panel. At first they were just added to the player characters. Like you open a character and there was the name and surname as a label. And players really liked it. They really loved naming characters. So we thought, okay, this works. We're keeping this feature. And then they thought, okay, but we need like kind of something more to nudge and build confidence. And then we decided, okay, we'll have like an extra special puzzle slot. And I'd say when we added these extra puzzle features to the Mermaid Inn, that's the moment when the Golden Idol was born, as it is. And then during playtesting, I'd say we didn't have like hard metrics. It was more like intuition. We'd watch a playtest and we'd get a feel like, okay, is this too hard or is this good enough? At first, the game fundamentally was harder. We didn't have this feature where it says 2 or fewer phrases are incorrect. It just said correct or incorrect.
Okay.
Yeah, which made it definitely harder because players sometimes leave in typos. Like they figured out
Yes.
everything correct, and then they just one phrase accidentally incorrect, and they rethink the whole hypothesis, which was correct, and they change everything and get very frustrated. And we just watch very silent and feel like dying inside while they're doing it.
Okay. Well, that's a good playtesting, by the way. If you don't interrupt the player and just die inside when they struggle.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're not dying inside while you're playtesting, you're doing something wrong.
Okay. So you actually tuned the difficulty down and introduced some of the checks. First of all, you segmented this confirmation from whole chapter to the special parts that, and then like to added two or more fewer things are wrong in order to help the players. And I think like for a chapter that has like 36 words, you usually like end up with like just a couple of them, less than 10 of the words that are not used. So I think it's not that many. I was wondering like whether you considered doing a, within the case of the golden idol, a different difficulty setting where you would like aggregate more words and you would just choose the difficulty in the beginning.
Yeah, we definitely were wondering about difficulty because our playtesters also the variance was quite high. I think currently the median playtime of the game is something like 6 or 7 hours to finish it, but let's say it varies quite a lot. There are people who finish it in 4 hours, and there are those who finish it in 20 hours. Like it's quite big, the spread. But when we okay, it's from the same like early version of the game. We at first we built it like you could gather loads of phrases, like almost anything you gathered in the scene, you'd get it. We were thinking, hey, you walk in a room, there's gonna be like lots of books, you can get phrases from them. Anything that's in player's inventory, you'll get phrases. We thought that's gonna be like fair. It's up to the player to figure out what's important, what's not. Quite quickly we discovered that it just becomes unmanageable. It's not enjoyable being overwhelmed by this information. It's actually not enjoyable. And this was a strong signal for us that we don't need this realism. We started reducing items in players. Like maybe you remember in the early scenarios, players have money in their pockets, which actually doesn't have any much meaning. Like it slightly signals their status in the society, but there are no money puzzles in the game. But they have money for some reason. we removed, like we didn't add any money after I think the third. Or no, after the mermaid, after the fourth scenario, there was no money because we thought, we actually don't need this trash. Like we need to show only what's important to the player, and they will believe it anyways. They will not ask us, hey, why do these characters don't have money, or why they don't have, I don't know, some other things, boots in their inventory. So we knew that we didn't want to manipulate amount of information because even if you had more phrases together, the game might just be harder, but also less enjoyable to play.
So the takeaway is that reality it comes second in this.
Yes, absolutely. Like the global takeaway in general, building this game was, I think detective game or sometimes puzzle game builders, they have lots of platonic ideals. Like they are thinking, hey, the puzzle text should not hint anything. Like the players should figure out everything themselves only from the evidence. And we also have this platonic ideal. If you, like the game should not be brute forceable. Like if you can do it, you're kind of not earning the victory. and everything should make sense, even like, yeah, why are you in the scenes and etc. But what we realized is that no, it actually doesn't matter. It's like whatever fulfills some kind of creative vision often is better. Like we should kind of be thinking about it as like making a movie, like you're the director, and through the director's eye, we just really choose where this scenario will happen, instead of wondering where could the protagonist be now and why is he or she there. Likewise, yeah, if we need this puzzle to work, we can be more explicit in the puzzle text. So yeah, it's absolutely fine to be arbitrary as long as you're delivering actually enjoyable this solving experience.
How does it look like to connect the information through the chapters? So the case of the Golden Idol, because it's split into chapters. In game, they're called chapters. It's weird that you call them scenarios. But okay,
no, wait. Scenario is individual, like this sort of scene. Like Little Mermaid is one scenario. Chapter is this one screen on which 3 scenarios are.
Okay. Yeah, that's true. So when you're going through from a scenario to a scenario, there is a continuity. Like, I'm not gonna spoil too much, but there are things that you will pick up from one place and then in the other. How does that influence the design of the scenario? If you know that, okay, this, like, do you have like predefined knowledge that player should have at this point because they finished the scenario? Like, how do you do this?
This part was super important for us because we really wanted to approach the experience in a sort of like holistic manner, where, well, when you start understanding how the story connects, you have this satisfying, oh yeah, all the pieces fit moment, instead of sometimes, I don't know, in TV series, sometimes you see that actually this ending is tacked on, like they actually hadn't figured out how to end this show. They just added this ending because they had no idea what to do, or season 2 contradicts season 1. Like we really didn't want to do it. Therefore, sort of backbone of the story was our, in a way, highest priority, and the approach was that we didn't know the whole story, but we knew elements, like main sort of plot beats, which we definitely wanted to happen. And then when we set out to build a new scenario, we started with discussing, okay, what kind of global story input and output this will bring. Like being still a bit maybe abstract and non-spoilery, but from the game, there's a scenario in which the first time we demonstrate supernatural abilities of Golden Idol. So it's one of the goals of it. Or in this scenario, this is the first conflict between the cult and someone else who has idol. We started with that, and only then we would discuss, okay, these are like the big story outcomes. Okay, what's the local story? What's the local mystery? What's fun about it? What's interesting? What's going on there? And it always had to serve the bigger needs of it. But regarding how we tracked what players knew or not, I guess luckily the game is not that long. You kind of learn everything by heart. So you intuitively, you roughly knew what players should know at this point. But it was also what was handy for us. With a few exceptions, we pretty much built the game chronologically. Slightly there were a bit of shifts, but we sort of, at any moment, we knew where players are. But sometimes it was a bit of challenge testing the game not as a whole, because we test scenarios individually. And I know someone has not played the rest of the game for a long time, and they've forgotten all the context. And this is one of the reasons why the game also turned out easier, because we were testing with players who had forgotten all the information.
Yeah. Yeah, and the information is quite important in the case of the Golden Idol between the scenarios to keep track what is happening. Do you think that Golden Idol would be better or worse if it had more chapters?
That's a very difficult question. My super honest answer is I don't know. I know that it's one of the main complaints about the game. Like if you analyze the Steam review contents, the length of the game is main complaint.
But the length in what way? Short or the long?
Too short. Yeah, too short.
Okay.
Yeah, and kind of it's a signal that it should have been longer, maybe a few chapters more. I don't know, maybe twice as long. It might be related to the fact that Obra Dinn is much longer game. I think I actually don't know what's playtime average for Obra Dinn, but it must be like 12 or maybe 18, maybe 20 hours.
Maybe it's a symptom for a hunger for this kind of thing.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I agree. But I am not sure if it would have made the game better, because I'm kind of happy with that it sort of didn't overstay its welcome. Also, like we told the story and we ended it in a satisfying manner. So yeah, my honest answer is I don't know.
Yeah, with stacking more and more chapters, you would need more and more knowledge to like hold at the same time, so it kind of can backfire at some point, like if you start losing track of some of the things that happened earlier. So yeah, I wanted to ask you, like, how have you set out to do this, like starting from blank statement, maybe some inspirations? Where have you started? Did you start with like mechanics and thinking how people will know what happened in the game? Have you had the story in mind? What was the order?
We started with mechanics. Namely, we posed this problem. Where can we build something Obra Dinn inspired, but 2D? We knew we didn't want to do 3D. Partially because art-wise we didn't feel that excited about it, partially because we didn't have experience. Like none of us had any coding. I wouldn't say that I'm not a professional coder. Like I had to learn Godot engine like on the fly while building the game. So we wanted to be very unambitious in how the game is built.
That's smart.
Yeah, I have quite a lot of game dev experience in general before that, so I know how to not overcomplicate things. But what we then did is I built a prototype to sort of test some game design idea, where the idea was, okay, there is this some kind of 2D scene which you can explore, and then there's some kind of puzzle in the end which tracks your knowledge, like how you figured out the mystery here. And I built with paint graphics, doing everything on my own in Construct 3 engine, a prototype about a Polish student dorm room. Where, I don't know why Polish student just randomly, who has accidentally died from overdosing insulin. He has diabetes, but he's eaten a huge cake that his friends have brought him, but it turns out the cake was like diabetic friendly, and it didn't contain any sugar, so he's injected too much insulin and has died from.
This is the real story.
No, it's not an actual story that has happened. No, it's something I invented, but I was recently diagnosed 2 years ago with diabetes, so it was kind of something that resonated with me, and I thought, oh, this could be like interesting mechanical mystery, and the gameplay wasn't great, but Ernest played it. We playtested it with a few of my friends, and we felt that something's there. Like the format, we haven't cracked it yet fully, but it feels like there's a potential. And only then we decided, okay, let's actually start building something in Godot engine, and let's start figuring out some kind of more serious test case.
How Godot engine held up throughout the development of the game? How long was the development, by the way?
1.5 years. Not full time. I'd say we both did it half time while doing other work, and intensive development. I'd say were first 5 months and last 8 months, like in between, because we had made an agreement that we will not build the game fully until we have sort of validated the concept, whether there's interest in it. I really did not want to spend, like, I don't know, a year building game and then publishing it and discovering nobody cares about it.
So how the Godot engine look like in terms of this development that takes some time? Because like I think there's a lot of resources and like tutorials and people that like hop into Godot, do some things and then kind of stay, like, you know, but the bigger projects, it's not that common.
I'm quickly thinking, why did we even... Okay, yeah, now I remember. So I built for smaller game competitions, very small projects. I've worked with Construct, and at some points I felt it's too limiting, because at some point the visual coding actually started to become more cumbersome than text-based coding, especially if you have lots of variables. And then I tried Unity, and I kind of didn't like it because mostly all my games that I build, they are very UI based. Either they are card games or some kind of strategic turn-based combat games, and learning how to do UI well in Unity, I think it's a bit of like bigger difficulty bump, like all the scalings and all that things which are super valuable, but not when you're starting out, then you're very confused by all of it. And I felt Unity, it was like painful experience. I don't want that. And then we heard about Godot, and decided, okay, gonna try some tutorials to see what it's like, and that felt, oh, this is like Unity, but just a bit clearer, simpler, in kind of some kind of ways more friendly. And I really also liked the GD script because it looks like Python, and there's some kind of like nice, clear readability, which again, I felt at home immediately. I think these were like the immediate attractions. Also, it's small, and the fact that it's open sourced and free meant that you're not making some kind of business bets, like big.
Okay. Yeah. So you use GD script, not C# in Godot.
Yeah. Yeah, as I said, because I liked how it looked like. Its native editor supported it better, and most of the Godot materials like use GD script first as examples.
How much, like roughly speaking, estimation ballpark lines of code in case of the Golden Idol has?
I have no clue. I've never looked at it. I don't think that many. Mm,
I wonder whether there is like a point, like a pain point that after reaching some limits of code in Godot in GDScript, you start to feel the pain of like not it's not being like a programming language that has some, let's say, like longevity and some build some structures around it.
well, if it's there, we haven't discovered it because we are working on a sequel with Godot 4, also using GDScript. The team is bigger. There's definitely more code, but I don't think we've hit any that kind of limitations because I mean it's like any language. You can split it in as many files or classes as you want to. So I'd say the unreal, like I think in any language, a programmer can make it unreadable or
Okay.
or very well structured.
What were the shiny parts of Godot compared to the other engines you have experience with?
So what I liked was that yeah, firstly it's small, doesn't have any installation, anything. You just launch the exe. I think it's like 50 megabytes, and it also meant that the builds were quite compact. I think Golden Idol altogether with the engine was like 300 megs, 350 maybe, which meant, and that was actually quite important for us, we could have a situation where, okay, in an hour I have a playtest, I'm still hectically rebuilding, fixing this puzzle, then I quickly compile it, export the build, upload it in Google Drive, and send it to them like in the last 5 minutes, and it's all doable. So I think that was very nice. Nodes are, I think, kind of relatively intuitive for newcomers.
You mean the building blocks of the Godot engine, right?
Yeah. The nodes, the node system, which they have. So I think that part also was kind of nice. I wouldn't recommend, I think, Godot for absolute beginners. I think for that, like Construct or maybe GameMaker is better starting point. But yeah, afterwards, I think it's a solid option. But there were definitely also pain points, and I think the main pain point is that unlike Unity, it's sort of like whenever you need actually to do some kind of implementation, some kind of API implementation, you don't have anything. You need to find some third-party solutions, or find someone who can create it for you or create it yourself. And if you're not inexperienced, like I can't do anything in C++, for instance, so I can't build any custom implementations. So that was, I'd say, big limitation.
But have you needed to do so in the case of the Golden Idol?
Yeah, for like typical example was we had to publish it in Steam. We need Steam achievements.
Okay. That's true. Usually, like when even somebody does the game from scratch, there's like the DLL for the game and then DLL like for the Steam, like to interact with each other. So like this is the bare minimum. It's actually important. Okay, but for the art part, you've done custom art for everything. So like the lack of the, let's say, comparably much bigger asset store that Unity has was not like a turn off for you, because you anyway was doing your own art for the majority of the game.
Yeah, that was completely irrelevant for us.
Okay. And now you're mentioning that you work on a sequel. Is this will the sequel be similar to the case of the Golden Idol, in terms of like, I like as much as you can say? I don't want to.
Let me think. So yeah, I mean, sequels Steam page exists, and fundamentally, so we're yeah, I think the fundamental answer is that yes, it will be similar. We want to deliver. Yeah, primarily, I think as the game was so positively received, we felt okay. Our main challenge is actually not spoiling this, sort of not making something worse, and it means that lots of the design was based like we did a big review and looked at okay, this works great, this works, we don't want to lose this, so.
How have you
The
done?
game will be a bit different, but I'd say it will be.
Okay.
Yeah, it will deliver something similar.
How have you done a review of your own game, like after spending so many times on the development and like sinking in every little detail? How did you do then the review and like step back to see what works and what not?
We did some kind of sweep of, I think we didn't do a full sweep of Steam reviews, but I think we gathered some kind of at least we're not very quantitative in our feedback approach in general. We're very sort of qualitative or just subjective. We're winging many things, and we made a list of various things that we've had mentioned about the game, whether they had like positive or negative sentiment, and then we'd sort of evaluate subjectively on our hand, like okay, what were the big strengths? For instance, I think big strengths of Golden Idol 1 is both the fact that there are these separate scenarios which you can separately solve and get like this win feeling, like I'm so smart, I solved this case, which gives like one sort of win, smaller win. But then there's also this very satisfying moment of noticing how the different cases start connecting, like having this moment, oh, this is actually connected, and this is like a bigger thing. Like this is something we definitely want to deliver in the next game as well.
Okay, so tell me where people can follow your work.
So we have our Twitter account. I think its tag is color gray 7. Yeah, on Twitter or X nowadays. We tweet rarely, but yeah, that's where any like important updates take place. If someone wants to reach out to us or chat to us, joining our Discord is the best option. It's not super active Discord, but it's actually good because that means if someone asks me or Ernest a question, we usually can notice it and actually respond.
Okay. I didn't ask you about that. Did Ernest have experience drawing art beforehand? Or he started doing this for the case of the Golden Idol?
No, he's very experienced in this. Which maybe also like the fact that you asked this question, I think maybe indicates his art style's effect. He has master's degrees in painting, and his whole life he's been drawing comics and cartoons for newspapers, and he's worked on quite a lot of games previously, I think.
Okay,
5 or
I
7.
didn't mean to like, you know, I am in love with the art style, but like I can't tell like what it requires. I think like it definitely requires like a special kind of brain to have this kind of art style. Like it's such a eerie and weird art style, but I am not an artist person. I didn't want to diminish your brother's achievements.
Yeah, no worries. It's all fine.
Okay, thank you so much then for the conversation. I can't wait for the Golden Idol part 2.
And wait, before we if we at the end, can I ask you a question?
Yes, sure.
Yeah. So let me think how to formulate it correctly. So if you for the moment, if you try to like forget about any existing materials about sequel, and you just had played the first game, what would be your sort of expectations or wishes from a sequel?
In a way, more of the same. In a way, like I think I'm hungry for more of the Golden Idol 1. You know, like we discussed the player character, for example, and like right now, I don't think I would like to be like a 3D character roaming around, solving the case of the Golden Idol scenarios. I would think more things that happen maybe in a tweakable difficulty level, because I think that if you tend to like this kind of games, and I do, you would maybe have a little bit better time with when the difficulty would be a bit higher. But in general, I think this level of experience hunting things, connecting the dots, I think this is the coolest part, like connecting the dots within the scenario and then like across the scenarios. This kind of feeling is a little bit spoiled maybe now, because like if you know that and expect that the things happen throughout from one scenario to another, you kind of like can expect more. But this wow things in terms of like, ooh, I did not expect this to happen. This is very cool, and I think this is the strongest point of the Golden Idol 1, and I would love to see that, more of that.
Cool. Yeah. It's one extra sort of thing that I wanted to mention, which makes me kind of happy, is that we were recently we discussed that maybe there weren't that many Obra Dinn followers, because Obra Dinn was very sort of setting specific. Like there's the mechanics of this memento mori clock, and it doesn't seem that you can easily make a game like Obra Dinn if you look just at how Obra Dinn was like. Meanwhile, it appears that there are now, after Golden Idol, more sort of detective games like that coming out. I think Duck Detective just came out, which is kind of a bit, I think, simpler, shorter, but similar mechanics, where you also fill in puzzles. Our own publisher Playstack will release a cozy, also sort of detective game, Little Problems. I don't know when, but sometime this year. And I think there are more games which are, now
I think you
opening up.
might have shown to the world that you don't need the scope of Obra Dinn to do this, maybe. And I think Obra Dinn made like a tremendous achievement with showing that you can have a mystery game which after some period of time will confirm that you're on the first good track. Like it I don't recall, maybe probably there were games like that, but I don't recall immediately a single title that would say like, okay, every 3 things that you get right will confirm you, so that you can, you get this little bit of dopamine, you know that you're on the right track, and you can follow along. And because you want, on one hand, convoluted mystery, on the other hand, you want, you don't want to dumb down your mystery for it to be solved in one go. On the other hand, if you make it too complex, it's very difficult. So like, I think Obra Dinn made this great discovery in this sense, but the case of the Golden Idol kind of shown that you can have this repeated experience. Like it does not wear out if like you can have like a simpler case to do that. Would you agree?
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I think that's one of the big differences. Like, I mean, my all-time favorite detective game is Outer Wilds, which
I
is
wanted to ask you.
yeah,
How
yeah.
much? Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's massively inspired by it, but I just really love it, and I really love that there the inputs to answers are actually your actions, sort of like where you're going, what you're doing. But like Obra Dinn, it's very open. It's very sandboxy, kind of like you explore and you make your connections in this big connection information pool on your own. Yeah, in our case, we have this much more curated experience. Like there's this small scenario, this small scenario, this small scenario, which I think is sort of advantage in a sense that, yeah, it's simpler to build it, but also you can playtest it much more. You can try out. You don't have to have all the things to see whether this game is fun or not.
Yeah, but so tell me this. How would you see the marriage of Obra Dinn and Outer Wilds? Maybe not Obra Dinn, but like Case of the Golden Idol and Outer Wilds. On one hand, you have an exploration, and you are not limited by anything but your actions. I think this is like Obra Dinn discovered this confirmation. The Outer Wilds discovered you can have a mystery knowledge-based game where nothing is like, you don't need unlock anything. You have it. You just need to know that this thing exists, and you can do it in like the first 10 seconds of the game if you want it. So how would you see this combined with this mystery that you want to solve with the mechanic that you have in the case of Golden Idol, where you have like kind of separated things that tell you every now and again you're on the right track, confirmed?
I don't know, because Outer Wilds requires time loops to work. like sort of when you were saying how would you make Outer Wilds a detective game, I mean, there's a game, this Overboard by Inkle, and where you actually have to sort of like you are the murderer, you have to hide from the detective, and that's a time loop style game, but I think for detective games, in a way, time loops are very stressful, because at any moment some character is being somewhere and maybe doing something or talking to someone. Like I think it's very intense, and it might again feel very overwhelming. I'd almost imagine it more like Witness, where you have some kind of broader sort of. Oh wait, no. Okay, I have a proposal how to approach it. Maybe we'll do it sometime in the future. Instead of being open sandbox of maybe, I don't know, geographic locations, you have maybe open sandbox of timelines, and this means you don't have this linear small scenario, but maybe you can pick and choose anywhere from this timeline some kind of scenario or event, and then sort of conclude it gradually, non-linearly, building the big picture together. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here.
So let me ask you one thing, like, because in Outer Wilds, it's very open. In the case of the Golden Idol, it's very closed. But it's still the mystery. And on one hand, in the case of the Golden Idol, you have a quick confirmation that you're on the right track. On the Outer Wilds, you kind of see things, and then in your like this kind of chart you have more information. And what draws you to some other places is that you have like a star and it says there is more to discover here, right? And you're kind of does this seem to you like, what would you think about Outer Wilds that has no confirmation? Would you think this would be fun? Like,
Yeah, it's a hard question, because on the one hand, I didn't use much this ship computer in Outer Wilds.
oh really? Have you had this like a map in your mind? What happened?
No, I just played it very chaotically. I had a sort of map. I did make some scribbles and notes on the paper. I was very methodical in my notes for the DLC of Outer Wilds, but in the main game, I just remembered, okay, like on that planet, I still don't know how to do that thing. Like I know I haven't. There's something missing there. But yeah, I wasn't methodical about it at all. But yeah, this is a hard question, because one of the main sort of challenges we were fighting all the time in Golden Idol was players being overwhelmed by too much information and being scared that they might have missed something important, or that they haven't understood some kind of mechanical part. And therefore we were super explicit how you play the game. Like, we show how many phrases you have to gather. We tell them you have seen everything, you have visited everything. Now you don't have to worry, you just think. Because I think if you don't do it all the time, you're not thinking about the solution, you're worrying, but maybe I'm missing some important detail, maybe I haven't been someplace. I feel that Outer Wilds like game like that, where you're kind of learning various rules, right? Like you're building understanding of various principles. I think it would work well if the principles are scattered around and sort of reiterated. You don't have to pixel hunt this one place on one planet in one cave, but you can validate and check them in various ways.
Okay, and also there's a new game that is very much compared to Outer Wilds. Animal Well recently came out, and probably lots to discover there.
Yeah, I've played through it.
Okay.
I don't think it's very like Outer Wilds. I don't know why people are comparing it.
Maybe because of like there's some things to discover apart from the main game, and maybe that's why.
Oh, yeah, that could be it. I think it's really nice and sweet Metroidvania, which is sort of like pure and intense. I really like Animal Well. For me, but that's also not an Outer Wilds comparison. But I'm playing a game called Lorelei and the Laser Eyes, which is a intense puzzle game, mystery thing, and it kind of does this slightly. It's kind of like escape room, but more story integrated, and you're gradually unlocking many rooms in a big hotel, and there is some kind of, well, now very confusing story, and you're building some kind of also like understanding of how to solve certain types of puzzles. I really like it so far.
What's the name? What's the name of the game?
Lorelei and the Laser Eyes.
Okay.
I definitely recommend looking at it.
Now I wish we kind of came up to this discussion with like a idea to do a structural review of how mystery games work and can work, and how they branch off, and like do this like a rigorous analysis.
Yeah, I think maybe to conclude this conversation, I think future is bright for deduction games. think people are getting more ideas and getting more inspired by various ways how to approach it. I mean, I haven't unfortunately managed to play through Trance of Senar, but I've heard that it's amazing. And
you should. You should.
yeah, I played the demo and I absolutely loved it. I just have to find time for it.
It's like 3 hours, maybe 4. You need to squeeze in.
Okay, then I can totally do it.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. That was awesome. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you, and good luck on the Golden Idol 2.
All right, okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay.